Aaron Rodgers refuses to talk about his $9.5 million home. So let's check this out. Just stay away from Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Aaron Rodgers has been open with the New York media since being traded to the Packers to the Jets this offseason. However, there is one topic that he considers off limits. The four-time NFL MVP appeared Tuesday on WFAN's Boomer and Geo, and his house came up during the wide-ranging interview. Host Greg Giannotti asked Rogers how he plans to furnish all those rooms. I have a lot of stuff from other places I've lived that I've incorporated, Rogers responded. And 2 weeks ago, the Post reported Rogers had purchased a $9.5 million house with 8 bedrooms and 10 bathrooms in the Montclair area of New Jersey. Which, by the way, to me, spending this amount of money on a home with like this much like rooms just sounds like more so annoying to me than anything else. Now, this is probably mainly like a real estate play because he knows that he can probably profit a few $1 million just from this property. It's just like me personally, if I were to ever have this type of money, I would probably not buy this type of home just because I just wouldn't want to deal with it. Because like deep down inside, I am a lazy SOB, and there's no way that I would go explore those 10 rooms like every day. Like, there ain't no way that I would go through all the 8 bedrooms, all the 10 bathrooms, like basically ever. Like, I'd probably use one bedroom, one bathroom, that's it, unless I had people living there with me. And if I didn't have that, no way. So, however, when pressed good naturedly by Giannotti on his decorating plans, Rogers decided he had talked about this subject enough. So apparently this is like what the house kind of like looks like, which by the way, it looks pretty nice, right? Now, if I had basically $10 million to just splurge, I probably wouldn't buy this. I'd probably buy, like, this is the funny thing. Personally, I kind of like the idea of buying like a castle just because I think that'd be pretty fun. But you could probably find like a castle for like less than $1 million depending on the location. Like you could probably find something similar to this in a different location for way cheaper. Like I mean, this is a lot of money. Like a lot of money to spend. Listen, I'm not going to talk about where I live, Rogers said. There's enough S out there already. And the Post Mary Kay Jacobs had the exclusive details on Rogers' new pad, which is 30 minutes from the Atlantic Health Jets Training Center and less than an hour from New York City. So I think this is like probably like the main reason why he bought something like this specific house is because of the location close to the training center. Although, if you had the money that Aaron Rodgers does, I'd feel like you'd probably actually prefer to just like buy something within like walking distance to the training center just so that you wouldn't have to deal with traffic because that would probably just be really annoying to deal with is the traffic. Let's see, the home offers panoramic views of the Big Apple skyline with walls of windows to maximize natural lighting. Called an architectural masterpiece, the contemporary house sits on more than 2 acres of land. Among its features are a media room, home office, three-car garage with a charging station, and wine cellar. Rodgers can certainly afford the property, even though he left $35 million on the table last month when he agreed to a new 2 year contract with the Jets. Following his offseason trade from Green Bay, the 10-time Pro Bowl quarterback had $110 million remaining on his existing contract by agreeing to a 2 year, $75 million deal. Rodgers freed up cash for the Jets to continue building a Super Bowl contender. General Manager Joe Douglas did just that, signing free agent running back Dalvin Cook on Monday, giving him a 1 year deal worth up to $8.6 million, which probably made like Dalvin Cook's day. Is like, oh, yes, I just made nearly 10 mil. With Cook and Rodgers on the roster, it seems to be Super Bowl or bust for the Jets in 2023. So here's the thing. Personally, I completely understand why Rodgers would not want to talk about his like property and like go into details about it. Because like the thing is, all of these celebrities they basically have like no privacy. So like I completely understand them wanting to be like, hey, just like can you not talk about where I'm staying? Like it gets kind of annoying. It's kind of creepy. I just really don't want to deal with it. Like I completely understand that. Now, just me personally, I just wanted to talk about this because I just find it interesting that you have these people who have made crazy amounts of money spend money in a way where it's kind of like, I mean, maybe he just like really likes the house and he bought it, so there's nothing really wrong with that. I mean, he could definitely afford it, so there's nothing wrong with him buying the home, like the home. But I like the what if type of thing is like, oh, what if I did have like $9.5 million to spend on a home, right? Would I actually spend $9.5 million on a home? Like if I had that type of money? And to me, I'd feel like I probably wouldn't. But the thing is, like, you just never know. Like, this is the scary thing about people who end up starting to make a lot more money over time. It's like you get into a situation of lifestyle creep, and this is where you could end up basically making like 50K a year and you are spending like about half of your income. But then you start making like $70,000 a year and now you're spending like $40,000 or $50,000. Then you're making close to 100. Now you're spending close to like 70,000. Like it starts going up and up and up. And like if you're not careful, you could get into a situation where you're living paycheck to paycheck even though you're making crazy amounts of money. Now, I highly doubt Aaron Rodgers is just like blowing all of his money, but there's a reason why you see so many pro football players, so many athletes, so many people who win the lottery that just completely go broke after a couple years. Like I think typically it's about 5 years after like a pro athlete or even someone who wins like a massive lottery, like 8 to 9 figures, where they just lose everything and then some, where they actually end up getting into debt, which is crazy to me, right? It's like, can you imagine that just like blowing through like $10 million, $20 million, $100 million? Like that is insane. But it happens because people are not careful. People start spending money as if they're going to be making that money for the rest of their life, which they aren't. And the biggest issue with these like football players is that their career can just end like that. So you could end up having someone where they get like a 1 year guaranteed contract of like, I don't know, like 20 million, 30 million because they're like a pretty good pick. But then after that year, they might not even have a career because they might have like did something to their spine, might have been hit wrong, might have had like suffer like a super horrible concussion, something, right? So even though they made a crazy amount of money their first year, probably by the second year, third year, no income coming in. Maybe they can't even work anymore. Like it gets into like a really really bad situation. So I just thought I'd like talk about this because one, I think it'd be pretty kind of like cool as to like think about like, oh, if I did have 10 million, would I spend it on this home? No, I wouldn't. But if you stumble upon this and you had like 9.5 million, would you spend it on like a home similar to what Aaron Rodgers had? What would you do with like 9.5 million? Hmm. Let's see. This person says, I agree with Rodgers. That's his personal life, and why discuss his new home and potentially encourage uninvited visitors? The thing is, because of his popularity and attention, he's probably always going to have like uninvited visitors. Now, the only good thing, like which is like really depressing when you really think about it, a lot of male celebrities don't really necessarily have to worry about getting uninvited visitors. The people who do gotta really worry about having uninvited visitors are female celebrities, female social media stars, because then they get like really crazy stalkers that do some outlandish stuff. So for them, they really need to like live in like a super gated community and like a lot of like safety protocols because once like a lady gets like a certain amount of following, it gets really weird. Dude has made hundreds and hundreds of millions, and people are fixated on a $9.5 million home. What would you rather have heard? He bought a $329,000 three-bedroom cape in Lodi. The thing is, like, again, there's nothing wrong with him buying a home like this. I just find it interesting to see what these, like, pro athletes actually spend their money on. Who cares about his house? He earned the money and he can afford the house. Really, why should anyone care? I mean, you say that, but people are putting comments on this article, etc. I actually wonder about that too. When these wealthy people buy a huge house for one person, I can't imagine furnishing 8 bedrooms, but the bigger the ego, the bigger the house. Now, again, what's funny is like Shaq, for example, which is a huge human who has made ungodly amounts of money and will continue to make ungodly amounts of money. He was like in an interview a few years ago where he got asked a question about his home. And his home is, I think, bigger than the White House or close to it. Like close to a similar size of the White House. Like it's like a massive, massive property that has like multiple properties basically put together. And it's just like this humongous estate. And so I think it had like 30 or 40 like bedrooms and bath, like something crazy. And basically he got asked like, "Oh, what do you do with all those rooms, etc. Like, what do you use?" And he basically responded, "I use 2 rooms out of my whole house, which is like almost like an 8 9 figure home, and it's basically like the kitchen and the bedroom." That's basically what he said. It's the kitchen and the bedroom. So the thing is like when you buy a bigger home, like what rooms are you actually going to be using? Like what like where do you actually end up like going to, right? Because to me, I'd probably just spend time with my dogs and just like cuddle them. Like you could do that in pretty much any room. I wouldn't spend like 10 bedrooms for that. Like I wouldn't go into 10 bedrooms for that. So it's just kind of interesting when you think about it. Hmm. What a stupid line of questioning. I don't blame Rodgers. Hmm. He's 100% right. Leave those aspects of his life alone. Imagine being a pro athlete and having to answer such stupid questions from such annoying little fanboys. How do you plan to decorate your house? Yeah, this is kind of interesting. Dude is a baller. Of course, he has a sick house, and he wouldn't take the. Okay. And this is news. Looks like a dental practice building. Huh. So I don't like. I think it'd be kind of interesting. Like, what kind of home would you buy if you knew that you were going to be making like $75 million in 2 years? Like, I think it's just kind of interesting.